Hey, it's Aaron, and if you've noticed over the last couple of days, everybody seems to be talking a whole lot about Iran. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why that is. We're going to talk about why Iran is important, how this directly affects you, and whether or not the United States is going to be going to war with Iran anytime soon. And to really understand what I'm talking about, you have to understand that this whole subject has a whole lot of nuance, a whole lot of moving parts, a whole lot of intricacies, and things that we probably won't be able to discuss here. But I'm going to try to give you the cliff notes. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an understanding of what's going on, and it all has to do contextually with a tweet that I read from Donald Trump just the other day that said something along the lines of "plenty of oil" in great big all capital letters. And I was wondering to myself what exactly the fuck he meant. Luckily, I do a little bit of research and I do understand a little bit about global politics, so I realized pretty quickly that he was talking about an attack that happened from the Yemenis people on Saudi Arabia. Now, to explain why everybody is talking about Iran, we have to go to Saudi Arabia and know a little bit about them. And for context, Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States who happens to be the second largest world supplier of petroleum products, of oil. And they happen to also be committing an active genocide in Yemen. They're basically destroying the Yemeni people. And in retaliation, the Yemeni people, through the use of Houthi fighters, have gone to the world's largest oil refinery, happening to be located in Saudi Arabia, and they blew that motherfucker up. They set it on fire, destroying roughly 5% of the world's oil reserves all at once. And obviously, this put the United States and Saudi Arabia on high alert. But instead of blaming the Yemeni people, the United States decided to instead blame Iran. Now, why exactly would they do that? And this sounds kind of familiar. It sounds like Iraq. It sounds like the same thing that happened during 9/11. Some sort of amazing, catastrophic thing happens to the United States or one of its allies, and instead of attacking the actual country that did it, they decided to go after another country because of, well, in the case of Iraq, it was oil, and in the case of Iran, again, it's oil. It turns out that Saudi Arabia and Iran are just right across from one another, separated only by the Strait of Hormuz, basically a bottleneck where 20% of the world's oil reserves has to pass through every single day. 20% of the world's oil reserves passes through this strait, this little bottleneck, this little waterway every single day. Obviously, it's a very strategic place, and it's somewhere that has been incredibly contentious in the last few years. Obviously, the United States has been putting massive sanctions on Iran for a long time, but since Iran has semi-control of this strait, it is one of the main suppliers to the rest of the world of major petroleum products and of oil. So obviously the United States has a problem with this, and they want to do something about it. So going back a little while, the British government had actually taken control of one of the oil tankers from Iran coming through that strait, and it created a whole bunch of problems. In retaliation to this, the Iranians took control of a British oil tanker, and basically to get back at the British for doing the same thing to them. And this created a lot of hostility, a lot of tension in that area. So obviously a lot of the people in that area, a lot of the oil-producing countries all across the Persian Gulf want to get away from there. They don't want to be using that strait any longer because it's becoming a major hazard. It's becoming more and more militarized all of the time. So they're trying to shoot pipelines all over the place so they can actually get their petroleum products out to the rest of the world without going through that little strait. Well, Saudi Arabia, they've decided to run their east to west pipeline and expand it so it can produce, I believe it was something like double the quantity of oil that they were shipping through there before. And Iran, at the same time, happens to be running their own pipeline up through Iraq and connecting with another pipeline on the other side of Iraq so they can dump their oil into the rest of the West through a pipeline going that way. So obviously, this is creating all kinds of geopolitical tensions. It's sort of an arms race on who can produce their oil pipeline faster so they don't have to use the Strait any longer. And everybody is all up in arms, and basically tensions are so hot right now that any number of countries all along that Persian Gulf could basically break into all-out war, or at least more war than they already are actually seeing because of the United States. Iran has decided not to back down, and they've said to the United States that they aren't going to pussyfoot around. They aren't going to take the United States' threats of war lightly. They're going to take them very seriously, even though the United States is basing their threats of war on intelligence that doesn't exist, just like they did in Iraq. And they've decided that they're not going to step down, and they will go to war with the United States if they absolutely have to. So, obviously, that leads me to the conclusion of this video. Is the United States possibly going to be going to war with Iran? It looks as though that it very well could be. If Iran doesn't want to just capitulate to the United States, then I don't see why they wouldn't be going to war with them, even though this could cause all kinds of massive problems throughout the Middle East and through the United States. And the bigger question is, how exactly does this affect any of you as regular people? Well, this is all geopolitical international politics. It seems as though it wouldn't actually affect anybody directly that lives in the United States, Canada, or the West, right? Wrong. Because it turns out that since 5% of the world's oil reserves were destroyed like that, now the price of oil is going to be going up all across the Western countries. And it's something that I've been reading about in the news all morning. So basically, that's what's going on. That's how it affects you. And is the United States going to be going to war with Iran? It looks like it very well might be. Now, a lot of people are standing there wondering, why am I talking about this? How can we do anything to fix this? What exactly is our options here? And basically, I can't really give you any solace in any options that I can say that are available. The only option that is available is to try to get out and start doing direct action. A fundamental change of the system is the only thing that'll actually change what's going on in the political sphere right now. And outside of that, we're basically just riding this tide, and unfortunately, it could get very bad for all of us very soon. So, at least that's the way I look at it. My name is Aaron. If you do get a chance, please check me out on Patreon. Every dollar does help fund this show. And thanks for watching.